north side isn't really buildable on the property because of that. You
Up on
also-
the,
So
okay.
between the subject property and the office tower property to the north that sits on the corner of 70.
what's our current setback for that creek?
We don't have a riparian buffer ordinance, so.
Yeah, so we don't have a setback for the creek.
Correct.
Where's the wetland? They haven't identified the wetlands in this application. I'm not saying there's not other reasons, but I went through it, I didn't see them. I saw the slope. I don't know how much wetlands. I don't see a wetland map. I don't see a development area. They talk about getting rid of the building and the parking lot and the fact that you would have to have stormwater controls. But I'm not seeing enough in here that makes this unique enough that it could not be reasonably developed. And I'm not saying its current zoning is appropriate for that parcel, but I'm saying that I don't see it so far in the presentation we have in front of us for me to vote yes on the suggested motion. That's it. It's not about whether this would be a good PUD or project. I'm just saying that right now, I'm not seeing enough. And I'm not trying to, that's the question in front of us, and that's the question I need answered. What makes this unique? And I'm not seeing a number about how many acres can't be developed. I'm seeing a site plan that's conceptual and shows a lot of coverage. That's it. So,
Can somebody remind us why we decided Millworks was unique then?
I can tell you what I thought.
Okay, wasn't it topography as well?
It was.
It was one, it was the unique design of the parcel. Two, that it was hemmed in by city property on one side,
Oh, and that
a
little,
railroad on the other side. You had that weird road that the city had but didn't quite have a deed to. You had title issues. They were also constructing an access down the Boardman Lake trails for the public. The only thing here in the public is a sidewalk along Ramsdale, which I don't know if that's, in a development of this type, I'm not sure if that wouldn't already be required. So,
I would have to ask Dave, but
Okay.
in absence of developing the property, it wouldn't be put in.
so I'm not seeing, so I'm saying that if I'm comparing it to that, as the precedent that it's being quoted, it seems very, it's not meeting that standard. Plus, you're taking out an old industrial building in a unique area and replacing it with a mixed-use development. This is just a housing development. I'm not saying we don't need housing,
Yeah, we do.
but, you know,
So I agree.
and I'm not against the project. I mean, if we get to the PUD stage, I have some thoughts on it, but overall, but I'm just saying that I don't see this as meeting the standard for a PUD. They haven't convinced me that it couldn't be reasonably developed in another manner.
So one question I would have for you, Brian, is, because you mentioned something that has crossed our mind too, like that the zoning may not be appropriate for that, right? Given the size of the parcel, its adjacency to the highways and everything like that. To avoid spot zoning that you're not allowed to do, which would be to zone this multifamily, have one parcel rather than a district, have a zoning. Really, the only other option you have then is to rezone it to C1, which would allow that residential, but it would then open up next to the next to the neighborhood a whole slew of commercial uses. So there's trade-offs there, you know, to
Property
consider.
to the north is already C1.
Correct.
so-
It is. Well, that's why you would have to zone it C1 to prevent spot zoning, and that's why the state gives the PUD option as a tool for land development.
For
We could, what
flexibility.
about, so I look at this whole thing, the master plan calls it for it as a transitional zone. Okay? And, you know, when you develop it, how you want it developed is an interesting question, but we put it in down there as a transitional zone. So we're gonna put in multifamily housing as a PUD to avoid spot housing. Next was C1, okay? So then are we gonna have multi-development housing basically along Bay? Is that the way it's gonna run? Are they all gonna be PUDs?
Well, that would be something that the planning commission would decide if someone came before you with that request, or begin doing the process of what the rezoning along that strip would look like. But that hasn't been put in place yet. The property's for sale, a party's interested in buying it, so that's kind of like where we're at with the process.
And I understand that,
Yep.
I'm not sure, okay. Like I say, I'm not here to debate it. I'm just waiting to be convinced. You're getting better, but you're not there yet.
My job's not to convince you.
No. Mitch?
Yeah, to that point, there is slope, there is creek, and we know that there's wetlands, even though we have no wetland delineation map in front of us. So those are meeting some standard, but I'm not aware of a clear standard that we have for one, any variance below the 3-acre mark, and how much of slope issue or wetland or watercourse issue is seen as a constraint on that. I mean, yes, I can look at the map and see where those are, and I can see, at least conceptually, a development. Yes, that's not an engineering diagram that is 100% workable, but the areas where they have left untouched because of ostensibly slope or drainage issues are perhaps 10% of the area, which is non-zero, but if our impervious surface coverage is at 45%, then you could be at twice that coverage and still not bump up into that specific creekside area or the slope in the back. But the fact is that the other properties along Bay Street do not have slope. They do not have creeks at all, so.
Yep.
It is something that makes it more unique, but where is the criteria for unique enough?
Yeah, and I agree that I don't think we should be comparing uniqueness from one place to another. I just simply couldn't remember the Millworks, uniqueness. To me, this makes a lot of sense. I think that we could have a much worse project going in that space. I think a PUD is a great way to work with a community. There's extensive review. It's a long process, and that's a commitment. So the fact that somebody wants to make that commitment there makes sense to me, and I think is a great place to put it. I know Commissioner O'Brien is not here, but we did receive an email, and he brought up a really valid point, which is it's currently a church property, and that's entirely taxes exempt. And this is a great way to collect some tax revenue off that property and change that over. Again, if we get comments from the peanut gallery again,
Please.
This is not your moment.
Please don't.
No.
No, we heard
You did that the first time.
Okay.
You're not doing it a second time. So, yeah, I'll leave my comments at that. I'm in support of this. It makes sense to me. There could be much worse things going into this property, and I think it's a really great concept in a moment where we are desperate for housing.
Jackie?
Since the master plan has been mentioned as well as community input, I'd like to point out that this particular neighborhood was vehemently opposed to the transitional identification for Bay Street within the master plan. They pushed back hard against it, and they were not heard. Subsequently, our strategic plan emphasizes as a pillar the use of urban planning to protect and preserve neighborhoods. I think that this is acting against the spirit and the letter of our strategic plan. The strategic plan also emphasizes year-round residents and support for avoiding the hollowing out that comes from seasonal use of homes. It remains to be identified. This is a conceptual plan, but
That's right.
given that it's Bayview property, it's highly likely to be seasonally used
I
and/or
think that's
rented
speculation.
long-term.
That is speculation. We don't know that.
May I continue?
Yes, you may.
Thank you. We have also all received numerous emails and other forms of input from the neighbors who are affected by this, with many valid questions and pushback against this proposal. And I don't think that those should be dismissed lightly. I think that they should be considered carefully and responded to. That's it.
Go ahead.
Just saying, we are not to adhere or be governed by a strategic plan
Correct.
of the elected body.
That is
Correct.
correct.
I just want that reiterated.
And
May-
this is
may-
what I do know. I mean, I really don't want to get into the strategic plan. That's yours as a city commissioner. It's not ours. But I know from going to some of those sessions that housing was a very big discussion there. And it's our number one goal as planning commissioners. And please refrain from comments. To say we don't hear people, we hear people. All the time, we hear you. We consider it in our decisions. But sometimes we have to weigh, especially when it comes to housing for all in this community. And it may not be what some people want, but we need it. Our businesses need it. Maybe you don't hear that, but they come to us all the time that they can't hire people because they have no place to live. So to say that we don't listen and we don't hear is not true. To go through this very long PUD process, if we allow this applicant to even apply, and I think some of this nebulous stuff, and we don't know this and we don't know that, is because there's no application yet. But there will be many opportunities, both at the city commission level and this level, to be heard and to hear these comments. We're not reading this. I read every one of the emails that came in. I understand how people feel. But I am also looking at the top of the page. And Brian, I understand everything you said. I had the same question. But I'm also looking at the top of the page of what is the purpose of a PUD, and that's flexibility in zoning and conserving resources, economic investments. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's creating a compact, pedestrian-friendly, mixed-use neighborhood. And that's what this would give us. I'm not saying anything about the plan. We don't know anything about the plan. We are going to have the applicant speak to us in a minute. But to me, I'm with Anna on this. We need housing. We all know there's very limited land in our community left to build. And there's an opportunity for housing here. And, I don't, as far as what Brian was talking about, there is this creek, there is a slope. That's all I know at the moment. And, but I would like to, does anybody else have anything to say yet? Because I'd like to hear from the applicant. Yes. Jackie?
I would like to comment on whether we, as a commission, own the strategic plan. That strategic plan is owned by our community. The City Commission adopted it with the endorsement and the strong input from the community. The resistance, please let me finish.
It's not a regulatory document
Let-
for a planning commission.
Correct.
I
Let
think
me,
that's the part that's being missed on that.
let me advise you that the further down the road you go with discretionary decisions by this body that contradict the strategic plan, the more you damage trust of the community, and the more you slow the momentum behind implementation of that plan. We are in the implementation phases of that plan. Individual departmental goals are being established that align with that plan. Budgets for next year will be aligned with that plan, and the Planning Commission needs to figure out how to support what the community has told us they want through the strategic plan.
That's the role of the master plan.
That's why we have a
There's
master
a
plan.
The
mis-
master plan is land use, The strategic plan is the identity of our community.
We are
Our
only
land
governed
Should
by land use.
align
But
with
the
the
plan-
preferred identity of our
No.
community.
The
We-
planning
It can't
commission
by
is
law,
land
Jackie.
use.
Framework in which you operate.
Jackie, and I would encourage you to have a talk with the city attorney.
thank you.
You know,
I
because
appreciate
her and I have
that.
talked about this at length. Zoning decisions can't be based off what the strategic plan says. The law does not support that. It has to be based off a plan. In the memo in last
perhaps-
night's meeting,
Our master plan needs to be revised to align with the strategic plan, as I've been requesting for the last 2 years.
Brian?
again, I would encourage that
Just a
conversation.
point of order. Can we get back to the
Yes.
topic at
Yes.
hand?
Yes.
I mean, that's not the question in front of us.
I got a comment.
Yes.
Back to what Brian was saying, if you look closely here, I just don't see anything exceptional here that would merit reducing the 3 acres. I mean, you could easily split this lot. There's not, if you look to the south, all those lots were at some point split into single-family lots. There's nothing preventing that from occurring on this site. Obviously, someone would have to do that, but back to the millworks, that was a weird property. It was way more narrow. There was a lot more restrictions in some of those topics in here about like topographic, physical. Again, looking at it just from that, because we're not even at the point where this even meets the 3 acres, so it's definitely a harder sell. If it met 3 acres, that's a different discussion, but we have to make an exception to even meet the ordinance. So that's kind of where I stand, just looking at what we have in front of us.
Would you like, could we bring the applicant up? Does anybody else have anything to say at the moment?
Yes, a question for staff. Under the package of zoning changes that were passed in 2023, it did allow for cottage courts. Would that sort of development permit the row houses component of this conceptual design and not the condos?
That's a good question.
Under the base zoning, I don't know that could work. No. Because you couldn't have more than 2 dwellings that had to be attached per lot, and then, yeah.
But it could work in C1.
Yeah, but then again, C1, you introduced by right. So if there's a concern about seasonality of uses, I would keep in mind the PUD gives the Planning Commission the greatest authority to negotiate the outcomes that you want. Conditional rezoning, you can't negotiate with what's proposed. If it's by right that's allowed, like the short-term rentals that are allowed in C1 and it gets rezoned to that, you have no say in it unless you go through a bunch of amendments and stuff. So you could put a condition on the PUD that says no short-term rentals. It's only through the PUD that you get that kind of authority to negotiate the more desirable outcome.
Jackie?
But aren't there already no short-term rentals allowed in the R1B current zoning?
He was asking about C1.
Understood.
Yeah.
One more question. I guess we could figure this out. What are churches usually zoned? Is it just based on because of where they're located?
Yeah,
Are they
churches don't receive a special designation. They're just zoning districts that allow places of worship.
So probably most of our churches are in residential. I'm just thinking of the
A
ones.
lot of
in
the
here.
older ones
Yeah, I'm
are,
looking.
because back in the day, I mean, even when the city was platted, Harry Hanna laid out certain lots for churches and schools and things like that. So that's, you find a lot of the older ones in the neighborhoods.
R2, R1B are the first 2 that jump out at me.
But there's other districts that allow churches as
For
well.
sure.
Because like this subject church merged with Central United Methodist, which is located in the downtown district, for instance.
Yeah, D1.
If there are no other comments, I'd like to invite the applicant. It's like everything.
Hi, my name is Will Bartlett from Keel Capital. I live at 10617 Waterford Road in Traverse City. I appreciate all the comments, reiterating our understanding and our request is this is a request to submit an application, and we understand that that involves a long road in the PUD process of negotiation with staff, you, the city commission, a lot of different parties. So just asking that this is to submit an application. To some of the comments earlier on, we don't have a wetland delineation, we don't have fully engineered plans, we don't have a lot of things. I 100% agree with you on that. There was a not insignificant amount of money spent to get to this point where we're submitting a request to submit an application, and we would obviously come to you with an application with a much further along set of engineered drawings. So with an application will come a lot more detail. I want to zoom out a little bit and tell you what really excites me about this property and what I really don't like about it currently. So what really excites me about the property, and as a housing developer, I like to build beautiful developments and deliver the most amount of housing possible that fits within a neighborhood and the master plan. And so what we laid out here, I believe, does that. What I don't like about the property now is, as a housing person, there's 0 housing units on it now. And it's a property that contributes 0 taxes to the city to help support services and everything else. Another thing I really don't like about the property currently, and Commissioner Treadwell mentioned it, is I really don't like that sea of asphalt parking in the parking lot. It legitimately bothers me. And when we talk about what the PUD allows in terms of all sorts of different things and a community benefit, there was a lot of discussion about the creek that runs along the north side of the property. Well, currently, there's a big sea of asphalt parking behind the church, and all of the stormwater goes into a storm sewer and directly empties into that creek. And we would put forward a stormwater plan that would detain that water and have it seep and slowly, any excess slowly trickle into the creek. It would get a lot better versus what it is now. And, there's a lot of other aspects like that that would be fully fleshed out in a formal application. In terms of, sorry, I'm just going off of what I've heard earlier. In terms of, what we see, we can't determine ultimately who lives there. I don't want this to be short-term rental. That's not my end game. I'm excited. My wife works at Munson. She has 2 young colleagues that, don't yet have young family. They're married, don't have kids yet, and I think they're, looking at that path. They like living on the west side of the city, close to Munson. And I'm like, you would love one of these townhomes. So I would love it to be full-time residents. I'm not a hotel developer. So that's what I have now. Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for being here tonight. I would imagine, even though this is at a very conceptual stage, you've done some back-of-the-envelope calculations about square footage per unit and approximate market rate sell price. Could you share those with us?
Yeah, so at this conceptual stage, I've had a preliminary meeting with the general contractor. I know what these have cost to build elsewhere. I candidly don't know what the townhomes cost to build in Traverse City, so we're at a very early stage there. The townhomes, the floor plate on each of the townhomes is 800 square feet, so it's a 2,400 square foot townhome. We're pretty set on, the condo building that we would like to build. Again, I know everything's up for negotiation in a PUD process, but, our preliminary plan, we have the footprint of our proposed condo building. We're still designing the condo interiors at this point, and have kind of put, not pencils down, but rested our pencil until we get past this meeting. I do want to be transparent with you, though. This would be full market rate housing. We're not looking to have an affordability component. I can go on as to housing economics and talk all night about that, but,
This is a
yeah,
simple
I do want to, yeah, I
back
do
of
want
the
to be
envelope.
transparent with you on that.
Yeah, so,
And I think this site calls for, that type of housing. Not in Traverse City. We are doing a 148-unit workforce housing development in Garfield Township, just south of Sam's Club and Cracker Barrel on 31. That's fully rent and income restricted at 100% of AMI. So I play in both lanes, but I
Yeah,
think this is appropriate for this.
and I recall that project is pilot supported also, if I remember correctly. But say 2,400 square foot dwelling at a very conservative $400 per square foot construction cost, you're talking $1 million in and more than that out. Is
I
that-
hope it would not be $400 construction cost.
Would not be $400. Thank you. Okay, thanks.
Are there any other questions for the applicant? No, thank you so much. Now we will open it up for public comment unless, right, no other discussion? We'll open it up for public comment. Please approach the podium, state your name, address, and you have 3 minutes.
My name is Mike Allen. I live at 1227 Ramsdale. We're directly across the street from the project. I don't think we know enough now to be in support or in opposition, but I think I hear what this group is saying about social policy and housing, but I really think your function, at the risk of being impertinent, is to interpret the zoning laws, not to make social policy. So, Mr. McGilvery, I agree with everything he says, and it says, approval for a PUD will not be granted when the planned unit development is sought primarily to avoid the imposition of standards and requirements of existing zoning. We are R1B. This project looks like it's trying to get around R1B, so it's in direct violation. Then it goes on, the statute doesn't say to be a PUD you must be 2.3 acres, it says 3 acres. 2.3 is 70%. If they wanted 2.3, they would have written 2.3. To Mr. McGilvery's comment, it said to get a variance, there must be exceptional topographical, physical conditions, environmental factors, or other unusual and unique circumstances associated with the parcel, the key, which limits the parcel's ability to be developed. There is nothing that limits this parcel from being developed. It's been on the market for 6 months. There's a beautiful church. There are community activities that could go there. It would be a lovely housing division. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
No, please, no applause, nope. Next. Is there someone else for public comment?
Well, my name is Chad Duttmers. I live at 1165 Ramsdale Street, across the street from the proposed project. I'm not going to speak to the benefits or potential detractions of the project itself. I do want to address the comments that were attributed to me in the presentation or in the memorandum. And I'm going to begin by saying that I was very appreciative of the call that Mr. Bartlett had made to me, inviting me to coffee so that he could share with me and his firm's, his plan for the 1200 Ramsdale property several weeks ago. The proactive nature of the call I felt was extraordinary, and I enjoyed my conversations with Mr. Bartlett both during our brief telephone call and over coffee at Aroma Coffee Shop that Thursday morning. Given his portrayal of his real estate experience and his project, I felt at the time that he would potentially be a very good developer of the property, and I was looking forward to seeing the site plans and renderings that he indicated would be made available. I would say that the comments that were attributed to me were confounding, and that the use of my name and the inclusion of my support for the project without and by proxy, the support of Mr. Winter's requested action in the memorandum, that without my consent, nor actually representing the true nature or context of our conversation. That was disturbing to me. I feel badly that I didn't have a chance to review the comments that were placed into the package prior to their submission. I would have been, I would have had a conversation with Mr. Bartlett, clarifying some of my positions that were, I think, misrepresented or mistaken. I feel like there is a definite risk associated with this project outside of the elements that we had discussed previously, or I've heard discussed previously, in that that really the behavior of taking somebody's name, taking somebody's thoughts, construing them, and placing them in a document for public record and public consumption without that person's knowledge, I thought was, at the very least, bad form, and at its worst, potentially malevolent, which I would like to believe is not the case. However, I do think that that action does call into question the sincerity of items that have been put forth within the plan, within the narrative, as well as Mr. Winter's inclusion of those in his memorandum. I think that it brings into question very real questions about the veracity of other things that might be included in the memorandum. Thank you.
He wants to speak during comment.
If you, he can speak during public comment, right? Yeah, you can speak during public comment. Let's let, okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Fern Spence. I live in Garfield Township, but Ramsdale Street and Ramsdale Road is my access in and out of where I live. I understand the need for more housing. I get it, and I am somewhat supportive of this plan, but I don't know how many of you have walked or biked at the corner of Ramsdale and Bay Street, but it's really dangerous. As a walker or cyclist, I always feel really vulnerable when I'm walking there because there's no sidewalks currently, and cars do come around that corner really fast. Unfortunately, with the roundabout completion, cars seem to be coming down Bay Street faster now, and they make that turn, and there's some blind spots that makes it hard to have contact with cars. So I would hope whatever happens, that there's good infrastructure for the number of walkers, cyclists, children. My neighbors are concerned about 36 units. It's a lot of units to add to that area. And also the two creeks, the creek to the north and the creek that runs along Ramsdale. I don't see a lot of enforcement currently of our riparian buffer ordinance. It's hard to enforce what people do who live so close to bodies of water. Those creeks run into the bay. That's really what I wanted to share with you tonight. I'm concerned about water, stormwater runoff, and the number of units. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's let the applicant go next, and we'll take everyone else.
We do not have a riparian buffer zone ordinance. Okay.
I just wanted to address the comments from Chad. Chad, I apologize. I thought I misinterpreted our conversation. When we discussed, we had a really warm conversation where we discussed a lot of different things. Candidly, we spent an hour and 15 minutes having coffee, and I think we talked about other things for an hour. I showed you the townhome plans that we included on the iPad, and I showed you the area of the site plan. We were looking at the map where we were saying we were looking to do 3 above 1 with condos. In a redo, I should have sent you the memorandum. I looked to send you the material.
Excuse me, point of order. He's supposed to be addressing his comments
Yes,
to the
please.
planning
Okay.
commission.
Planning Commission.
If
Sorry.
he wants to talk to someone in the audience,
Yep.
you can go out in the hallway.
You're right.
Okay, sorry about that. Didn't know the protocol. So I sent an email to Chad, and actually when I walked in, I turned around today, and I texted him and I said, oh, hey, Chad, like, good to see you. I tried to send you an email on Friday, and got a bounce back from his email, and I screenshotted the saying, hey, I got a bounce back to this. So I really apologize. I thought we had a very warm conversation. 100% correct. I should have shown him the memo and then said, do you agree with this? You know, a direct quote from when we met was, hey, this is what we plan on doing. Here are the townhome elevations. We're still working on the condos. And Chad, I don't know why I remember this part word for word, but he said, well, change is going to happen. And then we moved on to talking about a mutual connection that we had and his fishing trip that was coming up and everything else. So while not addressing him, I apologize, and that certainly was not my intent to misrepresent him or his opinion. I legitimately thought we had his support.
Okay, thank you. I do want to clarify something. We do not yet have a riparian buffer ordinance. It's being worked on, but we don't have one. Okay, right,
We do have setbacks from water bodies.
but not the full-blown ordinance.
Yeah, not the creek.
Yeah. Yes,
Oh, thank you. I live directly across the street from the church at 1207 Ramsdale. And we know something's going to happen to it. But you're taking a small piece of property and trying to make it bigger than it is. And I have a concern with that. You've got too many homes that are going to use that piece of property, and I think too many people coming in and out of it down that street. It was a private, quiet street, really. So I don't know what the advantage is, well, maybe I do, to the city, to crowd it. But there's no advantage to the neighborhood to do that. And my other concern is how close to Bay Street the property is going to be. I have this, I don't know, whatever it is, it's a little layout. I don't know the measurements. This came with no signs, but it seems very, very close. It seems like we're going to duplicate Hotel Indigo, which somebody else was saying. And if this whole neighborhood, excuse me, is zoned transitional, does that mean the entire Bay Street at some point is going to look like that? I think that's a huge mistake. We moved to Slabtown because of the nature of the community. And what you're doing, if you do this all the way down, it's terrible.
thank you.
Thank you for public input. I'm Chuck Mueller, 503 Monroe Street in Slabtown. So your charge is to determine whether there's reason to make an exception to deviate. I agree with Brian and Jerry. I read those same things in terms of the exceptional qualities, and that's something that you're going to have to determine. It's not clear to me. That's what stood out for me. In the application that was written, and I think even Sean referred to it too, the 2.3 acres was commented as just below. And I think that term is not accurate because if my math is right, it's a 21% difference. And that's not just below. You know, if it was 3.85, 3.8, I would say that's just below, but 2.31 is not just below. So those are two factors that you're dealing with. It's not just below, and also doesn't meet all those qualifications to deviate. I also read, in terms of the purpose for a PUD, that it is to reclaim marginal and abandoned areas. That was in the documentation that I saw online. So I'm not sure if that lot that fits that qualification too. I'm not sure that's marginal or an abandoned area. I do agree with Mr. Bartlett, though. I don't like the sea of asphalt. I would think that whatever happens there, I would like to see that removed. I do agree with your chairperson that we want housing for all, and I believe that, at least from my limited perspective, that a lot of the housing is not for all. It's very expensive, and I'm thinking this housing is not for all either. It may look pretty, but it's going to be pretty, I don't think it's for all. And the last thing I wanted to say in terms of what Jackie mentioned is I was part of, with my wife and other people going through our community, and we had hundreds of Slabtown community members that clearly said they have concerns about what happened in terms of changing that to transitional. So I know that's not a decision or a thing that you have to decide or think about today, but I want to remind you that. And when we brought that concern to you, you said, well, don't worry about it because there are going to be processes for public input like this. So I do appreciate that you're giving us that opportunity.
Thank you.
Victor Elizabeth at 1207 Ramsdale. This is my first meeting I've come to here, and be honest with you, I don't like what I'm hearing from the board. What I'm hearing is that they don't mind the density because they're worried about the taxes that we're going to get because the church right now is not paying taxes. I don't know, is that what I guess the question to the board, is that what the board is for, is to make sure that the city is making more money on taxes? Any of you can answer that.
We don't respond to public comment.
We don't.
You're commenting to us.
I'm just saying, okay, that's what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's troubling to hear that.
Say one comment.
Okay, I've been a builder for a long time, okay, and been a president of several different builders associations through Michigan here. And we've always had to obey by the zoning, what is on the books, okay? Anybody can build if they want to just keep on changing the zoning, okay? And that it shouldn't happen. There's a reason why there's zoning, okay? And there's public comment that goes along with the zoning, okay, to establish the zoning. And I don't think that the board here can just say, hey, let's just change the zoning, we'll just get more tax money. And that's what I'm hearing, and it bothers me, and I don't like it. Thank you.
Mary Mills, 424 North Elmwood, Slabtown resident. I'm here tonight because what's happening on Bay Street is not transparent, not community-driven, and not what Traverse City claims to stand for. For more than a year, neighbors have been raising concerns about Bay and Ramsdale, about the former church property, and we were right to. We saw the handwriting on the wall, a push towards high-density, high-priced condos in the middle of a long-established residential neighborhood. It wasn't paranoia, it was a patterned recognition. Over 330 residents signed a petition opposing the reclassification of Bay Street from R1 to transitional neighborhood. That's a massive, unified neighborhood voice. And yet, no one was contacted, not for a meeting, not for a conversation, not even for a basic acknowledgement. That's not community engagement. That's avoidance. And then the planning department claimed this issue had been addressed simply because staff showed up at an unrelated meeting with our neighborhood association. They never engaged with the people who actually signed the petition. Instead, residents were told, you have nothing to worry about. So here we are today. Let's be absolutely clear. The only way a 36-unit luxury project is even possible on this site is because the planning department quietly reclassified Bay Street, a neighborhood that was historically R1, stable, residential, family-oriented, was turned into a zone that invites commercial and high-density development. And while the city talks constantly about a housing crisis, this change is enabling million-dollar condos, not homes for working families. I served on the master plan leadership team. The Bay Street change did not come from that team. It was added later by staff. That's not community-driven planning. That's staff-driven rezoning dressed up as public input. And scheduling this PUD between Thanksgiving and Christmas, that's not an accident. That's a strategic silence, putting a major decision in one window where public participation is at its lowest. Slabtown is not anti-growth. We are anti-being ignored, anti-being misled, anti-being cut out of decisions that reshape the places we live. I'm asking the Planning Commission to actually stand with the people you serve. Reject this PUD. Restore Bay Street to a long-standing R1 only. Remove the transitional neighborhood designation. This is about accountability and trust. Traverse City deserves better. Slabtown deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Bill Manning, 905 Bay Street. Earlier this year, Slabtown residents presented this commission with a petition requesting not to change the zoning on Bay Street. The zoning change would allow mixed-use development, creating the transitional neighborhood concept. We asked for these changes to be removed from the master plan. Mr. Winters was stated in the Express article that this proposed development would be consistent with the master plan that the local residents did not want. Where is the public benefit? Now the developer is seeking approval for a reduction in the required land for the PUD. They are looking for a 23% reduction in the required 3 acres. To accommodate the proposed project, did the zoning request for the Mill District establish a precedence? The Mill District project is located in an old industrial area, not a residential area. This project is located in a beautiful residential waterfront neighborhood. This project, if allowed, needs to adjust their plan to the property size and zoning. We do not want this property zoning and size requirements changed to satisfy the proposed project. Now that the Parkway project is complete, there's noticeable speeding traffic on Bay Street. This traffic is entering at the new roundabout, speeding down Bay Street to pass Parkway traffic, then turning right on Division. To address this issue, I'd like to propose a 3-way stop sign to be located at Elmwood and Bay Street. This stop sign will address the current speeding traffic along with any future traffic. And on a side note, to that lady that just left the building for the space, that man over there had a legitimate cough when she was scolding him. And secondly, Jackie, I'm sorry for these 2 ladies over here interrupting you when you were speaking. They need, and this lady right here in the white shirt, you owe that man an apology for scolding him like a child.
Thank you. That's right.
Hi, it's Susan Lighthouser, 930 Barlow, and I am with Housing North, and I'm in part speaking in that capacity. So I want to thank all of the commissioners for your service. You have a very difficult job because I know that no matter what you do, someone will be upset, and you hear about it.
Thank you.
I would just note that this property, as I understand it, please, I apologize if I am stating anything incorrectly, is zoned R1B. So that is residential usage that allows up to 2 units per parcel, and also has a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet. So most of the comments I've heard seem to be pushing back against density. The PUD does not necessarily make it any more dense than another type of use. Given the location, I don't know the price, but it is presumably an expensive piece of property because we live in a beautiful place. It's very close to the water. So any developer that does anything different with it, if the church sells, it probably will be to a residential developer. I know I'm probably not saying anything that the commission doesn't already know, but it may just come in some different form. It is, given where the property is, it is unlikely that it will be low-cost housing. It will be either dense or it will be very large, very expensive homes, or both. And so I think you're looking at the right question that you've clearly defined, and I do hear a lot of comments that are a little bit off the topic. So I understand the issue at hand is whether to allow a PUD application for something less than 3 acres.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other? Yes.
Kimball, 523 North Spruce Street. So it appears we're getting misled right from the application process. Misled about the comments of a neighbor. And I think it's misleading to say that 50 homes could go on this property. You know, like you said, driveways. Well, there's a creek there. I don't think it can be building on the creek. I think the 50 homes came from just taking the size of the lot, dividing it by the minimum required for a residential single-family home. And since we are referencing the master plan in most all of these situations, I want to remind you, you said that neighborhood preservation was the #1, top of the list in developing this master plan. Is this your idea? Would this be your idea of neighborhood preservation? You also said the plan came from the citizenry. Well, I'm a citizen, we're all citizens, and none of us wanted this. So what citizens are you talking about? We know in other neighborhoods, those citizens don't want it either. And you said community comments and surveys directly shaped this plan. Well, the listening sessions from Slabtown, the survey from Slabtown contradicts all of that. We said we don't want multifamily, we don't want condo development, we don't want commercial development. So how do we have any trust that you have our best interest in mind? You got a long way to go to earn the trust.
Paul Wilkins, 610 North Madison Street. Kalkaska. Darn Kalkaska. They showed how local government can truly listen and act for the community. They supported their constituents and did the right thing. Imagine that. Local government hearing its citizens and acting accordingly. I think you can all relate when they turned down the data center. It came loud and clear what the people wanted. Look around the room. Our residents don't support this. I hope you're listening. I would encourage everyone to stand up and state where they stand. Don't just sit here. Even if you stand up and say, I oppose this, take that initiative, please. The Slabtown neighborhood opposes this proposal in its current form. We saw this coming. That's why Slabtown's rallied, and I'm not the first to say this. We provided over 300 signatures against the Bay Street transitional neighborhood. You didn't listen. You lost our trust. And the city commission has never approved it. There was a lot of talk about why are you going forward with a master plan before you have a strategic plan? And I agree with Commissioner Anderson. This is our strategic plan, and everything the city does to move forward needs to align with the 6 pillars. Looking at some narrative from the strategic plan, let's ask the question, does this proposal, is it supported by the 6 pillars? One of those is a strong desire to proactively manage urban design and strengthen placemaking. Without a planning process, there has to be considerable interest and support in taking a much more intentional approach in guiding urban design, including corridor developments and establishing stronger guidelines to protect and enhance the charm of the community. We're going to have Indigo 2 sitting there on Bay Street as the entrance to Slabtown. Are you kidding me? With the close and the proximity to the sidewalk? Right now, the current situation is the church is set back, a nice lawn of welcoming entry in Slabtown. Another pillar, need to creatively and aggressively tackle the housing issue. The issue of availability and affordability, and this is narrative directly from the strategic plan. The issue of availability and affordability of housing has been repeatedly raised as a concern, and how it is pricing locals and families out of the community. There's also concern about losing year-round population from the core neighborhoods. People support creative ways to bring back the year-round residents in their areas. Housing is also seen as a hurdle.
Your time's up, sir.
Thank you.
No.
It's been going off.
No, everyone has been timed. They were just within the time. Is there anyone else who wants to speak?
Hi. Perry Harmon, 619 Monroe Street in Slabtown. First of all, I want to thank the members of the Planning Commission to have us here for this meeting tonight. And speaking on behalf of our neighborhood regarding the proposed planned unit development, I want to begin by expressing the deep concern shared by the residents of our community. This proposed development does not meet the minimal size requirements set forth in our city's planning guidelines. And these standards exist for a reason, to protect the integrity, the safety, and the quality of life of our neighborhoods. Most importantly, there is unanimous opposition among the residents regarding this development. We believe it threatens the unique character and the sense of community that we have worked so hard to build over the years. Our neighborhood is more than just a collection of houses. It's a place where people know each other, look out for each other, and take pride in their surroundings. Allowing the development that neither meets the official requirements nor has the support of the community sets a concerning precedent. We urge you to respect the wishes of the residents and preserve the integrity of our neighborhood and deny this proposal. Also, too, you keep talking about we need more workforce housing. If I'm not mistaken, a development went up on Garfield a number of years ago that was initially workforce housing. Shortly afterwards, within a year to 2 years in, that property got flipped. People were kicked out, and it became high-end condos. And it seems to be the precedent going on in Traverse City. I've lived here for 21 years, and you see it time and time again. So if you want more money coming in for tax base, one thing to look at, it's not your committee, and it's being talked about more and more in this community, and hopefully it's going to move forward. Put a bed tax on all the hotels that are going up and start bringing money in to support the infrastructure instead of supporting bringing more people in who are here to enjoy themselves, go home, and not support anything. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who wishes to make a comment?
I'm Ann Wilkins. I live at 610 North Madison Street, just a block away from the proposed church renovation or development. And I have to say again, we don't need more high-end condos, more high-end apartments, more expensive places for people to live part of the year and not have a homestead. We need workforce housing. We need places for the people, the nurses, the doctors that work at the hospital. We need places for them to live that they can afford. So I am opposed to this. I think that there are better things that that property could be used for.
Any other comments?
Steve Kelman, 127 North Spruce Street, 30-year resident of the neighborhood. Walk my dog by that church pretty much every day. Love the neighborhood, love the area, and just want to reiterate what other people are saying, that this development does not seem in character at all with the neighborhood, and you've got a great reason to turn it down, given that it's 83% of your 3 acres requirement for a PUD.
Thank you. Any other comments? Thank you, everyone, for your comments. And so I'm bringing it back to us, but we do need to have a motion and a second on the table. Would someone like to make a motion, please, before we begin discussion again? Are you going to make a motion?
Sure. I'll make a motion to recommend the City Commission deny the proposed reduction in the minimum lot size required for a planned unit development for property at 1200 Ramsdale Street, commonly known as the Traverse Bay United Methodist Church.
That's it.
Because because the applicant has not met the requirements of showing an exceptional topographic, physical condition, environmental factors, or other unusual or unique circumstances associated with the parcel, which limits the parcel's ability to be reasonably developed.
Support.
Okay. All right, so we have, thank you, a motion and support. What further comments do people wish to make? Mitch?
Yes, I am not the realtor on the board, though we don't have a designated spot. We do have a realtor here. So I'm not necessarily qualified to have all the details on this, but there's been a lot of remarks about price. And yes, we don't necessarily know what these will go for. Though in my basic analysis, just looking on Zillow, there are no townhomes in all of northern Michigan for over $1 million. Ones that have sold within the past year or so are only those that have deeded water access, which this does not. You might have water views from some of the condo units, but it isn't actually on the waterfront. You have to cross Bay Street and Grandview Parkway. Will these be expensive? Quite possibly, yes. But I don't think that any of them, unless there are condos that are exceptionally large, will be in excess of $1 million, because it is not actually on the waterfront. It is not in a downtown area, which is another criteria. To the point of units on Garfield, I presume that was in reference to Trailside 45, which, yes, it was billed as workforce housing, though it didn't receive any specific tax credits or incentives through the city or the county to make that happen. And yes, it did get sold. The prices went up. However, the prices have come back down. Earlier this year, one of the condos in Trailside 45 sold for $150,000, which is frankly unbelievable considering where our housing market is. But the most expensive unit on the market right now in that building is $380,000, which, considering how expensive our real estate market is, that's still lower than it was for sale not 3 years ago at $70,000 more.
Mm-hmm. I think it's very important to point out that the Planning Commission has no legal authority to set price.
Mm-hmm.
So the only people who can offer incentives to developers is the City Commission, not the Planning Commission. So I think that's important to bring up.
And another point, We have heard a lot of comments opposing the conceptual plan, some comments opposing the PUD process, but many of them seem to be in favor of the current zoning. However, I have not heard why current zoning is preferable and whether, I'd say there are two scenarios that can happen under the current R1B zoning. One, it is treated as a single parcel and is developed for one house, which, yes, provides one more unit of housing than is there right now, but would be could be a house larger than the church that's there, could be larger than the combined volume of all the townhouses, the condo building, and the parking by a factor of 4, at least. With 45% lot coverage on 2.3 acres, you could have a building with a square footage greater than 1 acre. It could be 3.5 stories in height. It could be 150,000 square feet. For reference, Biltmore Mansion is 175.
You got a point there.
So that is allowed. I am not under our current zoning. If the neighbors want to preserve current zoning, is that what they are trying to preserve? The other option would be treating it as, yes, it's one lot, but it can be split. Our current standards say a minimum lot size of 4,000 square feet, which, yes, does pencil out to 25 parcels, each of which could have a house and an ADU, for example, on it. And that is a simple way to get to 50 units. Yes, there could be constraints that make it practically difficult in terms of lot frontage on streets to get to that number of lot splits and just how they are all shaped, but the fact is that you could get a lot of houses in a row with houses behind them and houses along Bay Street. And I have not heard why that would be a preferable outcome if we're continuing to operate under the present zoning.
Right, the truth is that...
If we want to preserve present zoning and that is in keeping with neighborhood character, then one of those two outcomes, the 75% of Biltmore or the dozens of homes close together, those are both options.
They are. I mean, the zoning
The
has...
PUD process has a little more flexibility in how it's viewed and has more constraints that we can pose about the specific character of that development, how it conforms with stormwater codes, how it conforms with the rest of our plan. We can impose a cap or outright ban on the short-term rentals.
Right. I mean, the point I want everybody to remember is this zoning has not changed. It's R1B.
Yeah.
And it's been R1B. And as you've just pointed out, by right, more units could potentially be built in R1B, which is, you know, well, let's hear from everybody else first. Brian, do you have something to say? Maybe you don't. It's fine. You don't.
I mean, I'm going to just say it as everyone seems to be putting the cart before the horse.
Right.
Both the public and a number of the members of the Planning Commission, we're all talking about this PUD and what it's going to do for the city or not do for the city or how it's going to hurt the city. And this is just a conceptual plan.
Right.
It could change quite a bit before then. And the question before us is simply the one that I've cited in my motion.
Right.
And if you disagree with that, then you should vote no on my motion. And if you agree with it, then you should vote yes.
Right.
That's the question. I'm just saying that I have not been presented, the applicant has failed to present to me an argument that shows why this should be considered. And I'm not even saying 3 units, 3 acres is what it should be,
But
you
that's
know?
what it's not.
But it is what it is now, and as other people have pointed out, we are bound by the master plan and the zoning ordinance. And those are what direct our decisions. And that is it. Okay? The master plan and the zoning ordinance. And do they meet the conditions? So.
Anna, do you think anything to say?
I will be voting against this. I stated my opinion earlier. I feel like it's unique enough. It's a good opportunity. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
I think this is really tough because, as we have seen in other parts of our zoning code, some things are not defined very well, and that's one of the reasons we've been talking about having a rewrite of the zoning code. But I think in this instance, I kind of agree with Brian, where we don't know what unique really means or what unusual really means. I mean, for me, when I was thinking about it, honestly, I was thinking about that it's R1B and that there could be many more things built than what this is proposing, and we need housing. But you were right in focusing on this definition. I think it's really nebulous, and you could argue all kinds of things. I think it needs to be better stated. And maybe, maybe someone could come back and tell us what is unique or unusual. I mean, it's putting us in a horrible position, in my opinion. But that's what is before us, and I don't think it's very well stated. But that's what I think. Any other comments before we vote? So, thank you for adding the language to the motion, Brian. Do you want to restate it?
Pardon?
Do you want to restate it?
The motion?
Yeah.
No,
Does
the
anybody
motion
need to
is
be
to
restated?
deny it based on, basically, I cited the conditions
Right.
in the ordinance.
Does not meet the
And
criteria.
basically stated the applicant failed to demonstrate
Brian,
that it met the conditions.
did you just say you had the motion that was in there and then you said because it does not contain? Is
Right,
that what you said?
because the applicant failed to demonstrate.
Ah.
Okay, the burden is on the applicant to demonstrate the uniqueness, and I just
It's
did not
problematic.
feel the application spent enough time addressing what's before us today.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, so we have a motion before us. Can we vote, please? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Oh, I didn't say all opposed. Okay, we had nay.
Well-
Okay, roll call.
Sorry, give me a second. Commissioner Swanson,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Oh, wait,
Oh,
sorry.
I'm sorry. I am voting yes to
for
deny.
Brian's, yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner McGillivray,
Yes.
Commissioner Heller,
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Hershey,
Yes.
Commissioner Deturi.
No.
Motion carries.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Does anybody need a little break before we?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I'm
wanted-
disappointed.
So this still goes back to the city commission, right? This still goes back to the city commission? No. You're making a recommendation to the city commission. Still goes.
No, I do. Oh, I do. I want to see that house. Yeah. I know where a bunch of them are too now. So,
Well, it's interesting, like, one of them, because it helps put it in context. I mean,
yeah.
because
I drive by there so much that I just need to look at the front of it, and I do it everywhere, because I'm not, like, good at the numbers to see how far it's spread out.
yeah, like, where's the one that I saw that was, yeah, this guy.
Yeah.
this type of thing?
Okay, I need to ask you something. We have the rest of the meeting, you're free to go. The planning office. I mean, there's suckers in the basket right up there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, can you give me one? Yes. Thank you.
Not on the agenda.
Yeah. I am committing to having no idea what it actually is. I just,
Do we have to wait for Sean for this?
I don't think so.
Discussion of the joint, do we have to wait for Sean for number B?
No.
no.
Well, who's gonna discuss it?
Probably. I would think so.
Well, he would recap it, but
Yeah,
I'm a
well,
volunteer on
I
the
can't
planning commission
I
for the
see.
city. What the city
There's-
puts in front of me, I will
Cover
review.
you.
I'm not out looking for extra work. Okay?
Even if it pays well?
Are we all back?
Wasn't paying it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Except Jess.
Jess is right there.
Where is she? Okay. Okay, so we are on 7B, discussion on proposed joint planning effort between the City of Traverse City and the Charter Township of Garfield for the areas surrounding Boardman Lake. No action required. Mr. Winter, are you discussing that?
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it to your attention because we've been having some conversations about a joint sub-area plan between Garfield Township and the city of Traverse City related to the lands along Boardman Lake. It's this natural amenity, a real gem that we are blessed to have right in the middle of our community. But there is a lot of land use pressures occurring both on the city side and the Garfield side along the lake. Most notably, we have some large parcels that are up for possible transition of ownership, that being NMC's University Center. We have either side of Logan's Landing. They're two separate parcels. We've had some look at TC Millworks recently along there. So with that, with the new Boardman Lake Loop, we're getting a lot more activity around there. Where there's people, you tend to see businesses drawn to those areas. And so we just felt it would be an appropriate time to explore jointly working together on a plan. Furthermore, it's in spirit of regional collaboration, which, you know, the community would like to see. We can't, as we grow, keep operating as individual jurisdictions. We're going to miss out on the best outcomes for our communities if we take that approach. And being that it is a natural amenity, there is a lot of environmental considerations that through a proper planning process, we could vet out the community's desire for the development along that lake and how that property is to be used. On the city side, one thing that's nice is we do have a lot of easements and 10-foot wide strips along the north end of the lake leading into the river and along the river, so we have a little bit more control there. But beyond that, it is up to private development. So as I mentioned, there's no action today. We were talking about bringing this to the City Commission on December 8th, but in speaking with the city manager today, there's no action for them, so we may just submit a memo just to let them know that this is something that we're considering. Right now, we do not have this in our budget, so outside of finding grants, as the memo and the proposal indicates, we are pursuing one from MEDC. We may have to wait till July to even begin this process when the next fiscal year starts, so we could budget accordingly. But the intent would be to hire a consultant to help facilitate this process between the two jurisdictions. And our master plan, when it was adopted 2 years ago, was set up for this type of process. The appendix is where we house the sub-area or subtopic plans into the master plan, so it would be the same weight as that. And the first one that we did jointly was the mobility action plan. So that's our first subtopic plan under that structure. So with that, you had in your packet just kind of a little overview, but I just wanted, as the planning body of the city, to be aware that these discussions are happening. We're still vetting it out. I'm happy to hear any feedback or questions you may have at this time, but again, we're in the early conceptual phases of this. We just met 2 weeks ago to have our first conversation.
Mitch, you have something?
Yes. Could this, you say it's at the conceptual plan, this is concerning with having a sub-area for collaborative zoning and land use, but could this dovetail or serve as a springboard for the creation of a lake association that involves the city, the township, the county as stakeholders, as well as people that own property or deeded access?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I
Because
would have to.
just looking at if there's maintenance of the lake or the surrounding area, lake associations are a well-established legal framework and can provide a source of funding rather than the city and the township bickering about who has to pay how much if we're, say, going to get rid of Eurasian water milfoil in the lake, or if we're going to do habitat restoration.
Yeah, that's a great question. I honestly would defer that to the city attorney because that's a legal mechanism. There might be some nuance in that this is considered a water of the state because it connects to the Great Lakes versus, say, like Glen Lake or something like that. So,
Glen Lake is navigable from Glen Lake to Lake Michigan. I did that last week.
Then again, I'm going to defer it back to the city attorney. So,
Becky?
Do you see any parallels between this effort and the joint planning that goes on for Grand Traverse Commons? And are there any lessons learned from that experience that might apply here?
No, I mean, to be honest, the only real similarities there is the word joint in the two. You know, it's
Got it.
that is
Okay.
that joint planning commission that we have at the Commons is a special body through legislation. This would be something different. So in this case, if we did the sub-area plan, the city would have to adopt it and the township would have to adopt it, and then they would have to implement it in their jurisdictions independently. Like, we couldn't implement changes in Garfield and they couldn't implement here, but the Commons is a little different in that it is one entity with two, but it's a special anomaly that wouldn't quite fit this same framework.
Got
Yeah,
it.
it was a good question,
Got
but
it. Can I ask a follow-up?
yeah.
You've got Garfield, Grand Traverse, and the city, and then Kate Redmond, a private entity, I guess. Can you help me understand the three municipalities plus a private developer?
Yeah, she actually came to us to set up a meeting and have a discussion because, as she shared with us, she was working to help find a location for a childcare facility partnered with an existing institutional facility in the city that's looking for a new home that would have paired well with the child care center. And so they were looking at some of the properties along the lake, and this person also is one of the owners of Common Grounds, which is right there. So I think it just got her thinking about the need for this and approached us with it, and we strongly agreed. And we are both very strapped, the Garfield Township Planning Director as well as myself, with just our workload before us. So she volunteered to help do some of the research on the MEDC grant and stuff like that, because she has pursued some of those developments that they've done. So yeah, it's been kind of like an organic origination.
Thank you.
But as it says here, though, it would be, the actual partnership would be between the city and the Charter Township of Garfield and Grand Traverse County, not necessarily Common Grounds.
No, they have no
Right. They're not
legal
a,
authority to do
right.
a
She's
master
just like
plan.
a
Yeah.
or she's like a
Engaged citizen.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Brian?
Any chance we'll get a look at our proposed riparian ordinance before this committee gets developed? Could we ever we get some type of report next year, early next year, on where this is at, if we don't have an ordinance, or where we see a draft, or weigh in on one of these meetings that,
Study session next week.
is lighter? I don't want to get into it on a full calendar, but
5 years? 5 years we're
Yeah.
working on it?
Oh, I
Going on
wouldn't say
6.
that.
well, there's been some turnover since then, but, yeah, it's,
So,
you know.
I did put together a draft. It went to the committee. They asked for a few changes, which I've made, and, but they also asked for some mapping, and we have a new GIS person who started last week. So, as soon as he is settled in, we'll have him do that map and get that back to the committee. So, and then we've had some discussions about how this dovetails with a possible update to the zoning ordinance and whether we should, try to write it so that it will stand alone, or if it should, be written in a way that can fall in line with that new change. So it's kind of a timing question too, but honestly, I totally understand where you're coming from, and it might be, it may take a very long time to do the full zoning ordinance update, so it may not make sense to wait for that. But at the same time, the committee asked for it to be kind of rejiggered and reconsolidated, and given that it's going to be rejiggered again, internally, we thought maybe we'd kind of leave it in the format that it's in, just make those updates that you asked for. So those have been done, and we can set up a meeting and, go through those without the mapping to go with it.
Yeah.
At this time, and, I don't know when the best time would be to take it to the planning commission, if, that committee wants to get one more look at it before we bring it, but, yeah.
I think
My
it can go
apologies.
either way. The committee was pretty, they're a very excitable committee. So I think they would prefer another meeting, but I think we could probably disseminate and take vote and see what lies, if they're okay with us bringing it in like the first 2 months of the year. I'm fine with that.
But thanks for your patience.
Thank you for your
It's
efforts.
projects like the one that was just on your agenda that go to show, again, that we have some areas that are not fully covered, that need to be brought under the umbrella of the riparian regulations, so definitely beyond timely.
Thank you.
Any other, Jackie?
Just a request. I'm sure that your intention will be to include representation from parks departments, county and city. And does Garfield have a parks department?
Yes. They have a
Yes.
Parks and Rec Commission, yeah.
Great.
Yep.
And, that they be at the table, as well as significant resident representation from day one. If that's possible, I think that would make everyone really happy. Make me happy.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this agenda item? Okay, so we're going to move on to C, discussion am I right? Yes, C. Discussion on the Attainable Housing Facilities Act and the Residential Housing Facilities Act. No action required.
Yeah, I just wanted to make you aware of this. The city commission, well, actually, we had that joint meeting, correct? Yeah, you're
Yes.
both at that. When Housing North was there presenting, as well as some others, on some of the different incentive tools that are available. Because Debbie is correct, the planning commission focuses on the use of land, whether there's a subsidy applied or anything like that, that's really the purview of the city commission. So they are currently exploring, based on that meeting, they wanted to have brought back to them more information on the Attainable Housing Facilities Act and the Residential Housing Facilities Act. So both of these were modeled after the Industrial Facilities Acts, which allowed for a 12-year tax abatement if certain conditions are met. So the same 12 years of tax abatement would apply if the landlord is willing to rent within a certain AMI of that individual's income. However, they do require the establishment of districts where that incentive would be allowed. So this doesn't change land use at all. It just applies an incentive to the existing land use that is in place. And so the Affordable Housing Facilities Act has a limitation that it can only be applied up to 4 dwellings. So a development that is 1, 2, 3, or 4 dwelling units. The Residential Facilities Act functions the same, it's just for a higher level of density, and that is applicable to properties that are developed with 5 or more dwelling units. So with that, I know next week the city attorney plans to bring this back to the city commission, and we wanted to propose where these two incentives could be applied. And even though that is the purview of the city commission, we wanted to get your feedback and have a chance to just opine on it. So what the city attorney and I were discussing is, since the Attainable Housing Facilities Act caps out on developments that are 4 or fewer dwelling units, it is proposed that the land currently zoned R1, A, B, and R2 be the districts that allow that incentive to be applied, because those are the districts that do not exceed that residential limit. And then the balance of the districts that allow multifamily development to occur, which are listed in your memo, would be the ones where the Residential Housing Facilities Act would be applicable, so for 5 or more dwelling units. That's just the basis of it. Again, no formal action, just general feedback. We didn't want you to feel cut out of the loop with this going to the city commission next week, again, since you were part of the previous discussion. So just curious on what you have to say.
Could you help describe to me how the RHFA might apply, for instance, to the Hotel Resort District or an NMC district?
So if they have multifamily developments in those districts, a property owner, and
Like a dormitory?
I'd save that question for Lauren, because she interprets that law a little better. I don't know the difference, how the law would be applied to a dorm versus an apartment, or even what that nuanced difference is. But if they were to build multiple family housing, and NMC has some apartments already, yeah, they could apply that if they meet the conditions that the city sets up to be applicable. So they could get a tax abatement, but in return, they would have to keep the rent at a certain limit.
If I can offer a bit of feedback, if it's possible to separate or prioritize city action between the RHFA versus the AHFA, my perspective is that we have a lot of tools that we're already using for multifamily developments, and I would be very interested in pursuing the options for smaller 1, 2, 3, 4 unit in the residential areas. I think that when we talk about gentle infill and encouraging smaller homes in existing areas, that would potentially be an important incentive. So,
yeah, I
for
would
what it's
agree.
worth.
I was on 2 ADU panels with Housing North, one virtual, one in person. And we heard from the public a lot that people are like, I would love to build an ADU. I might be able to scrape together the cash to make it happen, but I'm going to double my taxes
Tax
forever
impact,
on top of taking on that debt load because, you know, if they've been in their house for 10 years, their taxes are capped, but that new addition gets
Uncapped.
assessed at today's value and they lose PRE on it. So this helps kind of offset
Yeah.
that, and the trade-off is it has to be within an affordable income range.
Yep.
So,
So my personal interest lies in that direction
Mhm.
most heavily.
Anyone else have any questions or comments?
Well, to that end, most of our existing land acreage in the city is R1 or R2. Most of our existing dwelling units are in R1 and R2 zones, so. While having more tools and more flexibility are options, I do concur that that could be some lower hanging fruit.
I think as far as our review of this, both of these look great. The breakdown makes sense for the smaller units to be the AHFA and the RHFA for the spaces with 5 units or above, 5 dwellings or above. My only comment would be that it's abundantly clear that the people that spoke about housing tonight actually don't really stand behind that, that need in our community. The audience is made up of 4 individuals, 2 of which carried over from the conversation earlier. 3 did, but 1 doesn't really count. And it's just really disheartening when people continuously get up before us and say that, but not here. Affordable housing is really needed in this community, but not in my neighborhood, not in my backyard. And I, in full transparency, went back behind the wall and cried after that last conversation. I feel like I'm attacked every time I try to say that we need housing. As somebody that has only been able to afford rental units, and I'm 35 and I make above the average income, it's really disheartening just to have the realization that we have all of this space, we have the capabilities, we're just refusing to change a little bit, to grow a little bit for people to stay here. So it just tied in perfectly. I had to. I'm sorry, it's kind of a dovetail and not really super relevant to this. I love this. I think we should be doing this immediately. I agree that R1A and R1B and R2 make the most sense. I think that will help people like my brother who will be trying to rent out his house while he builds this second unit. There's so many people that I know it will help. So I really appreciate the movement on this.
Well said. I
Thanks.
appreciate that, and I think this all looks great. That's my feedback.
was there any opposition to that breakdown of the districts, though? We just try to tie it to the density that's already
Makes
allowed.
sense.
so-
Yeah,
It
makes
makes
sense.
perfect sense.
It makes sense, but I would say that with some flexibility, for example, you do have parcels that are C1 that are relatively small, and yes, you could get several apartments above an existing first floor office, but you might only get 4 units just because of the space. So yeah, useful to look at them as tools, and
As many more tools as we can come up with, I think that's great. Okay. Anything else? All right, where are we? Sorry.
Reports.
Reports.
Or public comment on
Oh, I'm
C, I
sorry,
guess,
yeah. Is there any public comment? Let me see, closing public comment. Oh.
My name's Andrew Gorell, 128
shoot.
North Elmwood Avenue. I'm playing a little catch-up. I got out of work and was watching Double Time on YouTube to catch up, and I missed the earlier discussion where I saw many of my neighbors, but your vice chairman echoed many of the thoughts that, just now as I walked in, many of the thoughts that I was coming here to say, that I was kind of like, ooh, this is rough. So any tools that we can have, again, I'm still playing a little bit of catch up on where the conversation is. There's a little delay and I missed some of it in the parking lot. So anyway, thank you for those comments just now.
Thank you. I just realized I totally skipped over report, sorry.
Well, technically, we do the public comment for each item,
We do,
don't we?
yeah.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, okay. Oh, yes, okay. Let's, yeah, more.
It's been a long night. I'm going to be really quick. I'm just going to thank you for taking a look at this and considering it. I know that, next week it'll go to the city commission. As representing a nonprofit, we are in a position to provide outreach and education that you maybe can't do in your official government capacity. So please feel free to reach out to me personally or our executive director, Yarrow Brown, and assuming this gets approved, there will be an education piece so that the public knows how to use it. And we would look forward to filling that need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, there was one point I forgot to add to that. So this piece of legislation there's two pieces, one for each of these tools. When they were adopted in 2022, they had a sunset date of 2027. So they have to be put in place, and then by the end of 2027, no more agreements can be issued on this. So the sooner we enact it, the sooner people can begin using it. Now, I believe there is talk of possibly extending it another 10 years, but with the legislature, you never know for certain. So we're trying to hedge our bets on what certainty we do have, and that is that it is applicable through 2027.
It's good to know. Okay, well, I don't know what happened to my whole agenda. Went away. Sorry. Thank you. All right, any other discussion on this, Brian?
I'm going to go back, and I'm just thinking about this with your districts, and you might want to consider this, looking at some other comments that were just made. I look at the C4 regional center districts, and I really question whether someone's going to do a large, other than already maybe the city itself, but any private developer is going to do a really large low-income housing development for a 12-year abatement. Maybe, I don't know, but that'd be my question, and I'm not familiar with the details of it. So perhaps even in the C4 districts, maybe the smaller designation would be more appropriate. Just a thought, unless the designations can be changed in the future.
Well, and that's a good point. A question I want to ask the attorney about is there any way that they can overlap?
Yeah.
So you could apply, because, to Mitch's point earlier, we have plenty of buildings that only have 2 units above them downtown, because that's how they were built 100 years ago. So, yeah, that's something that I can ask her on that about. And I agree, especially downtown where property values are very expensive, you could potentially get it used for an abatement, but then after 12 years, it's probably going to turn into condos, But I guess I would encourage the commission to consider, the tools can't be used if they're not enacted. So by enacting them, you create opportunity, not certainty, but opportunity that something could happen.
Oh, I
So,
agree.
Right.
Yeah, you're right.
Nowhere to predict. Is that it for this?
Would you like a city commission report belatedly?
No, I'm about to move on to that. Okay, so reports, city commission report. Go ahead.
Okay, just to remind everybody, if you missed the must-see TV, the 29 dwelling unit cap for hospital, hotel resort, and NMC districts was approved. And we also had a chance to see several instances of individual commissioners putting our new ethics ordinance into action, which I found really refreshing and a positive development. You know, we're sort of at an awkward point in that process right now where no one's had to file official annual disclosure statements, but they're stepping up and being as transparent about, you know, areas of potential conflict and as possible. And so I think both the spirit and the letter of the new ordinance are in the process of being implemented, and I'm very pleased. We might, as a planning commission, because it applies to volunteer on boards, everybody, staff, elected and appointed officials, we might want to think about in the coming year how we're going to make use of that new ordinance and fulfill it. So that's all.
Has that been distributed?
The city adopted an ordinance, and it went into effect?
It went 10 days after the vote.
And do you think the city commission might have shared that with the people it impacted?
Yeah, that, it would be
I've
nice.
never seen it.
They
In theory,
haven't
yes.
distributed it to any of our board
Maybe
members.
it could be suggested that it's shared to everybody that it affects, because we haven't received that.
Nor has it been distributed to people that serve on appointed boards that it affects.
It's coming.
Okay.
And yeah, another update from the city commission meeting that doesn't directly affect this board, but it affects city operations as well, including indirectly planning department and the rest of the city. We are moving forward with Ben Marentet as our first pick for a permanent city manager, so that will go to contract negotiations. His interim term expires on January 31st, but at present, the city seems very happy with his performance, so that will be what's continuing.
Great. Update from the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission?
We had a special
Right.
meeting.
I'm sorry, did I just, oh, sorry, update from the planning department, sorry.
Yeah, not much right now. We let you know that Dave Weston, zoning administrator, and myself will be unavailable for much of next week. Just we're participating in some discovery and deposition work, so we'll be tied up in that. But Leslie and Katie will be available. So, do you guys have anything else?
Okay. Now, update from the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission.
We spent a really long
Time
time.
just debating what a shed is, how
Correct.
big they can be, how many
Correct.
is too many.
Probably too long.
But hey,
But it was productive.
that is what zoning sometimes looks like.
Yeah, at a special meeting. That's all we have.
Yeah, so for that context, there's a public hearing scheduled at their regular meeting, I believe the last Wednesday of January. It gets moved a week because of MLK. That shifts all the other meetings that regular week. But it was the Joint Rec Authority who is requesting the zoning amendment as it relates to the community garden area. It limits it to one shed, but there's 3 nonprofits that are operating in the community garden, and so there's a little bit of a text amendment to address the allowable square footage and number of sheds that could be on that portion of the property. So they'll be holding a public hearing on that amendment request the last Wednesday of January.
Oh, I suppose this is since the last meeting, but does staff want to talk about the Michigan Association of Planning workshop on coastal resiliency?
Yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, that was pretty helpful. A lot of it is stuff that, you know, we're pretty engaged with already because of the efforts with the riparian and being a coastal community. A lot of it that they cover is not as applicable to us because we're at the end of a protected bay. We don't have the high bluffs and the wave action that you'll see along much of the Great Lakes coastline. But yeah, we went through, it was actually a pretty, Mitch was there too, obviously, a pretty interactive workshop. So you didn't just listen all day, you were working and reporting out. And we actually kind of analyzed our zoning ordinance, all the communities there. And we were in pretty good shape as a starting point. I know we don't have a riparian now, but we already, in the absence of a labeled riparian, we have the waterfront setbacks. We have the prohibition of tree clearing within there. So we have a lot of that stuff already in place. And so that's what the exercise was getting us to do, is really go through the ordinance, you know, clearly identify some of that stuff. But yeah, it was good. We got out about an hour early. I picked up a nice booklet on from Eagle on small marinas, like ways to develop them so that they have less environmental impact. You know, the challenge that a lot of the communities have that we brought up is we can prohibit structures within 25, 50 feet of the water, but the problem is once you get below the ordinary high water mark, Eagle can permit break walls and all kinds of stuff, you know. And we've seen a lot of that back about 6 years ago when we were really at high water. You know, they were handing out permits left and right, and communities were really struggling with that because it was having an environmental impact. And we talked with Eagle at that meeting. They were in a tough spot. You know, people's property was literally falling into the lake, and they had to permit something. But it's a challenge I think they're still working through on how to handle that better because, again, we lose control once you get below that elevation point. So that's about it.
Okay, thank you. Where am I? Board of Zoning Appeals.
We haven't met.
We haven't met in a very long time.
Dave has, I think, already canceled the meeting for next week, which will mean a full year of no BZA meetings.
And I think Dave said that this is the first time in his time here that there's been an entire year without a BZA meeting, I believe.
People are following our zoning code.
Yeah, really, that's not a bad thing, right?
Yeah.
Well, and it oftentimes indicates that your zoning's somewhat dialed in. Like if you're getting the same zoning variance request again and again and again, it's probably best to handle that through an amendment. And so a lot of that work has been done already.
Okay, update from the Riparian Buffer Committee. We've kind
We
of talked
already
about
went into
that.
that, yeah.
And then update from Grand Traverse County.
So I did send Maxwell's email
Yeah, I saw
at the end. If you didn't see that, because it was not too long before the meeting, he did just want to say that at tomorrow's county Board of Commissioners meeting, they will be discussing the development of bringing back like a planning department at the county level. So they're on a different fiscal cycle, so they're in their budget season right now, so that's why they're having those conversations. And talking with Maxwell last week, I don't think they know what that necessarily looks like yet, but they want to make sure that they budget for it, so as they kind of hash it out, they'll be able to move forward.
Okay. Yes.
Do we not include the historic districts?
Never been on here.
Oh.
I just figured because they're under the planning department.
They did have an eventful meeting.
Well, that's the only reason I asked. I didn't know what transpired. I just saw there was a lot of people, and the more people I've seen in a while in the historic district meeting in the middle of the day. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there was that meeting. There was an individual or couple who bought a house on Fifth Street, and you know, it's not in good shape. They had a structural engineer go through and create a report. We are working on getting a second report on that for the committee, whether it's through the construction code office or finding another entity that can do that to help inform them. Because the intent wasn't to, when purchased, to tear down the house. The intent was to build an addition off the back. And it was at that time they realized what poor shape it is, and it couldn't really support that. So they're looking to rebuild the house, which would be subject to the Historic District Commission, whatever they put there. So that's still ongoing. No decision was made. But I believe in January, the city attorney will be bringing some information regarding the Historic Districts Commission to the City Commission. There's some items that need to be addressed to be compliant with law. So
thanks for the heads up.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it'll be coming.
Receive and file?
I don't think we have
Nothing to
anything.
receive, nothing to file.
No, but I did send out that that thing from Garfield.
Yeah,
That
I
if we
saw
had
that.
received it in time, it would have been on there. So you should all
Okay.
have it. I'll put it on the next agenda
Yeah, I
just to
saw
make sure everybody has it. But there is a receive and file thing in your inbox.
Okay. Is there any closing public comment? No. Oh, yes.
Hi, Andrew Gorell, 128 North Elmwood Avenue again. Thank you for being here. I watched the meeting from home at the beginning. That was probably not fun for you. I chose to drive down here as quick as I could, sort of just to counteract some of my literal next-door neighbors. This town has, as I've grown up here, as long as I can remember, seems to have an established knee-jerk reaction to any type of development in any way, shape, or form. I think as we look back through the history of the developments that have happened, even just in the downtown district, et cetera, if we looked at that opposition now and then looked at what it is 20, 30 years later, it would blow you away. The very same people who love some of the amenities of the development that happened 20 years ago would have been the same people opposing it then. You have the unenviable task of having to literally plan 50 to 100 years in the future. I live in Slabtown neighborhood. I have an 1898 build. It's been there a long time. It is multifamily. The only reason I'm able to live in town is because it is multifamily. Otherwise, it would be drive till I qualify kind of situation. I was lucky. I am an outlier. I would caution this commission against what seems like, and I was honestly on the group text of many of the people who were here tonight, of sort of a knee-jerk crying reaction of, I've built my Northern Michigan dream and I'm pulling up the ladder behind me. I guess I would say often those arguments come around with the word character. Cities are about people. People make character, not the building itself. Again, I don't envy your task of planning 50 years in the future, but I hope that you do it deftly and you can figure out means. I understand the vote that you made today and made sense in both directions. Anyway, I wanted to stand up here and counteract some of my neighbors a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for your bravery and for speaking out. Okay, a couple things. Are we going to have the next meeting?
Now, as of now, we are tentatively not planning to have that. It's really pushing up against the holidays, and that's why we put these two last items, which really are more like study session, on the agenda, so as to not bring you back
Okay.
10 days before Christmas. So this will be our last one for the year.
Okay, so I want to say,
Happy holidays.
Jess and David, are here tonight. I know your terms are up. Thank you so much for all your hard work. You are still technically on until they pick a replacement, so in case.
And the replacement is sworn in and shows up to
Right,
the meeting.
so in case that all happens before we meet again, I wanted to publicly thank you for your service, and David as well, who could not be here tonight. And you know what? Housing's a really emotional issue here, and we just have to keep moving on and moving forward and find ways, as many ways as we can, to achieve what we need to achieve. And, you know, I just want to say, what gets to me, I guess, is, sure, I want affordable housing, I want attainable housing, I want workforce housing. We legally can't do anything to make that happen. And so I hope that these incentives keep coming, and that will give developers the incentive to build that housing that we desperately need. But all I want is for all of us to focus, and I want the city to focus on our young people and how we need them to fill jobs. We need to have places for them to live. And I mean, I said this at the city commission a couple meetings ago, and I'm just going to keep beating that drum here. So thank you for being here. Go and have a very, very happy holiday. I'm kind of sad we're not going to have our little holiday get-together. Had I known, I would have baked for tonight. So have a great time.
We'll eat them in January.
Yeah. Okay, I can cook in January.
Yeah. It'll be a New Year.
Mitch, do you have something to say?
Yes, just as a final remark, last week, City Commission was canceled, so I went up to Banks Township to sit on their township meeting.
Oh, good
If
Lord.
you haven't heard, There's currently some people that are trying to throw out their entire zoning code so one of their trustees can build a gravel pit on land that he owns.
Yeah, please.
Sure it's not a conflict of interest.
No.
Oh, no.
There's that new ethics. Yeah.
I don't think ethics
they do not.
is something on their radar.
It's board. Banks Township, Antrim County. Not yet. We- yeah. I'm sure there are. We haven't seen.
There are no lists.